What would you do if all the women around you are a bunch of faceless robots, and when you try to live like them, people start dying and disappearing? Today I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the Mononoke in Mononoke the Movie, The Phantom Reign. This beautiful lady has no idea that her life is about to change drastically in the next 4 days. Her name is Assa, and she arrives all by herself at this giant, tightly guarded gate to a place called the Ooku. A young man stands by the gate accepting gifts for a birth celebratory ceremony. The first thing we learn is that the Ooku is off limits to men and even for women. You need to possess a gate pass to enter. Another woman named Kame comes close to her and immediately reveals how much of a klutz she is. She raises her hand and her stuff falls out of her bag. Assa helps her pick them up and Kame immediately offers her one of her grandmother's rice balls. Then they strike up a conversation immediately, talking about how they have both come to work at the Ooku before they are interrupted by this weird looking man. I'll call him Mr. Medicine Man. And just after he interrupts, our naive little Kame offers him one of her little rice balls too. A guard that I will call Mr. Gate Man walks up to them and lets them know that he's been expecting them. He tries to rizz them up, talking about how beautiful they are, but they know he doesn't have no aura, no juice, so he offers to help them carry their luggage. But Assa declines while Kame agrees, but not without giving him, yep, you guessed it, some of her mother's rice balls. Mr. Medicine Man notices his failed attempt at wooing and offers to give him a love potion to help his future attempts. That's when Mr. Gate Man notices there's even someone standing there. And yep, this is all shades of wrong, because why are you a guard if you can't even notice the strange figures literally standing at your gate? But then the scene changes and we see some guys who weirdly enough have made it into the Ooku. The more stern looking one calls his friend in glasses Hiramoto and scolds him for flirting with the girls in the Ooku. Hiramoto calls him Saburomaru and tells him to keep quiet because he can sense pretty ladies nearby. Yep, serial flirt. And soon enough he sees Assa and Kame, but before he can move on them, Saburomaru threatens to throw away his gate pass. Mr. Gate Man opens the gate for Assa and Kame after inspecting their gate passes and tells them to meet with Madame Aashima and Mugitani beyond the gate. He warns them to make a good first impression and wishes them good luck before sending them on their merry little way. With the gate opened, Mr. Medicine Man tries to slip into the Ooku, but he's quickly stopped by the gate man who warns him that the Ooku is not a place for men, but for women that serve the pleasure of the king. So yeah, it's basically like a legal harem. He warns that if he tries to go any further without a gate pass, he will lose his head. Okay, this gay man could have saved himself a lot of future trouble, and here's what I would do. The self-acclaimed medicine man has been fishy since he arrived. 1, looking at the gate all funny and dressed up like a clown with all this makeup on, and even worse, he isn't actively trying to sell anything. Instead, he's just poaching on innocent girls and teasing a security guard. But his real red flag is that he tried to slip into the Ooku without a gate pass. I may not know everything about being a security guy, but I know this. When someone shows up uninvited and tries to slip into without a valid means of entry, it is reason enough to send them away. Far, far away from that place. Heck, for all we know, he could be surveying the security apparatus of the place, trying to get cozy with me or the other guards, or even looking for a good entry point into the palace. So, if I were in the shoes of the gay man, I would obey the rules of guarding 101. As soon as he moves funny, I send him and his medicines. We don't even know if it's real medicines, by the way. For all we know, he could be smuggling illegal stuff. If it's not enough to threaten him, it's better to take action now and explain later. Too many things can go wrong if this medicine man turns out to be no good. If he can enter into the king's harem and possibly even have his way with some of the king's wives, guess who would lose his head for that? Me if I was the guard, so no thank you. Thank you for your medicine, but take it and be on your way. Assa and Kame continue that tour of the Ooku, and Kame holds Assa's hand like they've been best friends since forever before jumping on the Ooku rug. They meet Lady Aashima, the head housemaid, and Mugitani. Just think of her as an assistant to the head housemaid. After Assa and Kame introduce themselves, they do some initiation ritual for them. Because why are they giving them weird water blessed by their goddess to drink? Aashima explains that all the maids that live in the Ooku partake in the water drinking ceremony every morning, and she claims it is to ensure that they can always produce an heir for the king. But take a look at all the chicks around us. They're all faceless zombies with weird spirals in place of their face. Oh no, it's Uzumaki all over again. As soon as they drink it, Assa and Kame frown with their faces, showing that whatever blessing this goddess gives tastes foul at best. Mugitani, the assistant maid, then instructs them that to show their devotion to the king, they must throw away whatever their prized possession is into a well. To them, it means discarding their ties to their former self, whoever they were before coming to the Ooku. Kame initially resists, but when all the brainwashed girls in the Ooku start echoing the same phrase, she decides to partake in it. But first, she tries to share her precious rice balls with the woman. Seriously? How can she not read the room? And as she passes the pack to the woman closest to her, they pass it on and on without taking anything until it gets to Mugitani, who gets a little too excited to throw it all into the well. Some babe named Utama walks through the room, and you can immediately tell that she's a big shot. All the maids clear the way for her and begin to greet her with another chorused phrase. Aashima, the head maid, tells Kame that she cannot focus on her duties if she's still tied to her old material possessions. Assa, however, is a badass, opinionated woman. I knew I liked her for a reason. She talks back to the head maid, asking why they can't work and care for their possessions at the same time. The head maid is surprised by how outspoken she is. She explains that she has practiced writing since an early age and was only allowed to enter the Ooku because they had recognized her talent as a writer. She explains that aside from her love for writing, she has nothing physical that she can throw away. Lady Aashima is shocked that there's a lady that has no physical possessions that she cherishes. Meanwhile, Kame is already getting into the spirit of it. She pulls out a special comb given to her by her beloved grandmother and throws it into the well as a symbol of her dedication, even though Assa tries to stop her and points out that the entire ceremony is not necessary. At the same time as Kame feels sad for throwing away her grandma's comb, our medicine man, still at the gate, feels jitters down his spine. A drop of water out of nowhere lands on his cheek. Talking to no one in particular, he says, "I sense a form has appeared." Comb floats for a while and then suddenly it starts to rain. Lady Aashima points out that the ladies are going to get wet, and that's when they all mindlessly bring out their umbrellas to shield themselves from the rain. She apologizes to Lady Utama that she had to witness Assa's outburst before screaming at Assa and Kame to bow their heads before Lady Utama and Lady Baran, a concubine of the king. Lady Baran stylishly scolds the head maid for Assa's actions, but while the head maid is apologizing, Assa's not moved. She explains confidently that she does not neglect her duties. Utama, the head admin, explains to Assa that the Ooku is not a place for the fulfillment of any private ambition. Everything must become secondary to the Ooku, which she calls their primary identity. Utama explains that as they continue to work in the Ooku, they would obtain a higher perspective. Outside the Ooku, the medicine man asks the gate man why so many people are gathered at the gate, and the gate man is surprised that he does not know about the birth celebratory ceremony. The medicine man says he only smelled a money-making opportunity. This makes the gate man give out some information that one of the king's ladies, Lady Yukiko, just gave birth, and they're celebrating the birth. The medicine man proves to be quite knowledgeable because he points out that the ceremony should have been held before the birth and not after. Inside, Saburo introduces himself and Hiromoto to Lady Utama. Without wasting time, he asks why the ceremony was originally postponed, but instead of answering, Utama asks him to leave everything about the ceremony to her. She sticks to the explanation submitted in her report, that there was a lack of preparation. She calls in some big names using Lady Baran's position to her advantage. Saburo tries to raise his voice, reminding her that he came on behalf of the shogunate, but Lady Utama cannot be bullied. She reminds him of his place by telling him that the Ooku belongs to the king and exists for his sake only. She warns Hiromoto to stop flirting with the girls in the Ooku, leaving him red with embarrassment. Mugitani takes Assa and Kame around and shows them the building while informing them of their duties, and boy, there are many. They're supposed to make breakfast before sunrise, but Kame protests. Evidently, she was made for the soft life and not for serving tables. Assa, on the other hand, is not shaken. She has a history of serving her neighbors, so even serving 100 maids is not a scary task for her. And Mugitani takes the girls to the side for the concubines to move. Despite being warned by Mugitani, Kame can't hold herself when she sees a beautiful concubine. She blurts out a compliment at one of the ladies called Lady Fuki, but this angers Mugitani. Meanwhile, the medicine man stands by a well just outside the Ooku. He puts a sticky paper on one of the walls of the well just before a guard asks him to leave because they're closing. For some weird reason, as soon as he places the paper on the well, the conversations holding in different areas of the Ooku echo into his ears from the well. So he can hear what Saburo and Hiromoto are discussing despite being very far away from their room. While Saburo is talking to Hiromoto about their role in the Ooku, his, I guess you could say, spidey senses are tingling and he senses a weird presence stalking them and gets on his guard. He signals Hiromoto to follow him, but when they open the door after doing some ninja moves, there's no one in the doorway. In their room, Kame also talks about how bitter the water tasted and wonders how the others can drink it so casually. And there are also more pressing things on her mind, like succession to the throne and becoming a concubine to the king. Yeah, you see, for all the glam and beauty of Kame, she actually thinks that's all there is to life. Assa, on the other hand, doesn't like being overly romanticized or becoming a concubine of the king. She'd rather learn a skill. Kame feels like Assa would be good at anything she decides to do, but she doesn't have that luxury. Assa tells her they're a team and that she has nothing to worry about. Meanwhile, we finally see what makes Lady Fuki so attractive. She's obsessed in a bad way. She drinks again and again from the water that Assa and Kame have confirmed to be gross and bitter. Maybe there's something in the water. After drinking and drinking, she goes to join the king for the night. And you know, and I know what happens next. Assa and Kame go about their duties, setting tables, and Kame proves why she must get the king's attention soon. A few seconds after they start, she slips and loses the food she's eating. Then, they join the rest of the women for their morning weird water drinking ritual. They sing a sad song about women and their misfortunes, which is kind of funny because they're supposed to be the king's concubine. But anyways, Utama enters, and the faces of the faceless women begin to change color from black spirals to blue spirals. And she informs them they're now just 3 days away, and she will not tolerate any slip-ups. At the gate, the weird medicine man is still around, and he stares at his paper on the well and makes a weird comment about how it is not yet time because whatever it is still far away. Lady Utama announces that there are about to be some changes in the personnel structure and ranking of the ladies. Lady Aashima is put in charge of the arrangements of the ceremony and is promoted from head housemaid to guest greeter. Following the change, Mugitani becomes the head housemaid, and Kame can already imagine how bad things are gonna get for her. But just when she thinks things can't get any worse, they actually do get worse. Lady Utama announces that she has also promoted Assa to the position of tour guide to Saburo Maru and Hiromoto. So they appoint her as a housemaid, and get this, it's the first time someone has become a housemaid in less than 2 days. Just so they could keep the two men from sticking their noses elsewhere, because she tells Assa and the other maids to serve the Oku with their body and soul. Assa is accosted by Kame because we all know she's too lazy to do actual chores, so she decides to help Assa with giving guidance to the men in the Oku. At the gate, the medicine man and the guard are becoming way too chummy, but really it's just the guard being unprofessional again and releasing vital and secret information to someone he just met. He tells the medicine man the story of a woman who left the Oku and went back to her village because she couldn't keep up with the life of the Oku. When the medicine man asks for the name of the girl, he finally realizes how dumb he is, then he finally shuts his mouth. Assa carries out her duties, but Ani just keeps being annoying, and she's all fuzzy from walking where Lady Fuki walked yesterday and cares nothing for actually doing what she offered to help Assa do. Utama seems to have taken a liking to her dear old Assa, because when Aashima informs her that the purification salt for the ceremony has not arrived, she decides that the responsibility for getting the salt should be taken from Aashima and given to Assa. She says it is her duty to give more work to those who are good and responsible. Anyway, Assa arrives in her private room because promotion comes with its perks. Kame seems a little jealous but does a good job of hiding it before running out of the room. As Assa walks around the room, she opens a shelf and an old concubine doll falls out. Pretty normal, right? Wrong! As soon as it falls out, a series of events start to happen. First off, someone shows up in the doorway saying that she left the doll there, but when Assa turns to enter, the person's gone. Suddenly, everywhere she turns, she hears the sound of the woman's voice. She says she left it when she changed rooms. Assa finally sees the person talking, and she introduces herself as Kitagawa, the former occupant of the room. Assa notices that she is the official scribe of the Oku because of the kimono she's wearing. But when she speaks, the lady tells her that such hierarchies only exist within the Oku. Assa explains that she once visited the Oku with her father for a birth ceremony, and that's when her childhood dream to work in the Oku began. She recounts of how she fell in love with the scribe that wrote that day, and then Kitagawa informs her that she was the one meant to fulfill that role at the ceremony that was postponed 2 months ago. While remembering, Kitagawa sees the figurine drawing of a lady under her, but it suddenly turns around to look at her, causing her to scream. She tells Assa to apply for the role of official scribe. Assa refuses, wearing her crown of humility by saying that she's not ready yet. Before she leaves, she tells Assa to look after the doll for her, claiming that she would return for it another time. She leaves the room and Assa runs after her, but when she gets to the room door, there is no one in the corridor. Kitagawa has vanished. Mugitani spies on Assa while she works, and that's how we get to know that Kame is not setting up the morning dishes with her. At the morning water drinking ritual, Kame is still dozing away. Mugitani is watching her angrily, and as soon as the water ritual ends, Kame's morning gets a lot worse. Lady Aashima starts scolding Kame because she failed to attend to the task Mugitani gave her the previous day, while she was busy walking about with Assa and getting lost in thought. But then Assa shows up again and takes responsibility for Kame's mistakes. Aashima wants to use it against her by asking about the purification salt she sent Assa to get the previous day, but Assa is the epitome of order. She informs Aashima that she has already gotten the purification salt, but then Mugitani takes the opportunity to lay into Kame even more because she is not as capable as Assa. Assa shows that she is also skilled because she defends Kame like her life depends on it. While they're talking, the eyeballs of fish in a drawing begin to change. While that's going on, Mugitani is attacking Kame for flirting with men, being lax about her duty, oversleeping, calling her a promiscuous and lazy woman, and Aashima then steps in before Mugitani can continue, and Kame thinks it's over, but she is so wrong. Lady Aashima tells Kame to pack up her things and head to Mugitani's room, where she will be giving more detailed lessons of how to take care of a house and do chores. Mukutani is way too happy by this, and she looks down on Kami with a wicked grin on her face. Assa, however, tries to protect Kami by offering to take her under her wings and train her herself. But before she succeeds, Mukutani grabs Kami by the hand and drags her away. Elsewhere, we see Hiramoto flirting with one of the maids, and Saburo Maru is honestly really tired of him. However, he proves that he is not only a serial flirt, but also an information specialist. As soon as he leaves the babe, he shares information with Sabu. A maidservant fell ill and left the Ooku 2 months ago. But aside from that, no one in the Ooku knows the real reason why the ceremony was postponed. Back to the front gate, our gate man is having fun with his bestie, the medicine man, but then this medicine man brings out a device, and when the gate man asks about it, he tells him that it is a scale that measures the distance from that which cannot be seen by human eyes. As he says this, the guard gets nervous. Mukutani begins to torment Kami in her room, and she pours a bucket of water on her and asks her hard questions. As she continues to torment her, the scales outside of the Ooku begin to turn. The guard notices it, and at the same time as the water in Mukutani's room overflows and the floor begins to change color, Lady Aashima notices that something is wrong because she sees a figurine on the floor. Outside the gate, the guard braces himself as the medicine man draws suspiciously close to the gate. And then suddenly the scale chimes again, and the medicine man screams excitedly for the first time since arriving at the gate. Inside, Mukutani carries all of Kami's properties and heads to the balcony before throwing them all away. Kami screams in tears, but then something even weirder happens. Tears start coming out of Mukutani's eyes, and then the tears change from white to a funny blurred color. The items hit the water at the same time as the medicine man gets ready to enter the Ooku. Then we finally see the guard get serious. He warns the medicine man that if he takes one step in the direction of the Ooku, he will be cut down. But the medicine man doesn't seem to mind. He gets himself ready and rushes at the security guard, and then he proves why the security guard should have been fired for a long time. He moves so fast, faster than the guard can pull out his sword, and in a very weird fluid motion, he pushes the sword back into the guard's sheath before kicking the guard away. But then he runs further into the Ooku, and he warns the guard that the Mononoke is here. The guard runs after him, but his weird scale things point him further into the Ooku. The guard tries to stop him, but then they find a frightened Lady Aashima. She runs quickly and hides behind one of them, begging them not to leave her alone. When they ask what happened, the medicine man says Lady Aashima heard a frightening scream from Mukutani, while the security guard stays with Lady Aashima. Assa climbs the stairs, chasing after the medicine man. When she gets up, they find the wet body of Kami, but he confirms that she's still breathing. He asks if she was alone, but Assa tells him that Mukutani was also with Kami, and he praises Assa for how calm she is. The medicine man tries to say something, but then realizes that something is very wrong. He says he didn't make it in time, and then they suddenly hear a rustling sound on the roof, and all his scales begin to point in one direction. Then out of the ceiling, just like an item warping out of Obito's dimension, all of Kami's items that Mukutani threw into the water fall out. But that's not all. Together with them, a dried, mummified body falls out of the ceiling. And believe it or not, this ancient-looking corpse of body was once the chubby Mukutani. The medicine man tells them that what they've witnessed is not the work of any human. The guards try to attack him for invading the Ooku without a pass, but he's not bothered at all. He tells them to put away their swords because they are dealing with something that cannot be slain by a mere sword. He explains that they've witnessed the work of a Mononoke. Think basically demons from Demon Slayer. They attack him thinking he's just playing, but he simply ignores them. And in the best use of anime Jedi magic ever seen since the invention of Star Wars, he summons his sword and draws it to himself before holding a piece of wood and jumps away from the range of their swords. He inspects the wet dead body on the floor and notices the circular patterns. By this alone, he figures out the name of the Mononoke when it was alive. He calls it Karakasa. He warns them he cannot get rid of the apparitions until he has slain the Mononoke. To slay the Mononoke, he must use his sword, which he calls one of the 8 swords representing yin and yang. And after a lot of explanations, we find out he's a guardian and he tells them the name of the sword, the sacred sword. Honestly, I expected more from after all that build-up. Lady Utama shows up absolutely not bothered by the freaking dead body on the floor and asks why has he not slain the Mononoke. He explains that as usual, every great weapon has a drawback. In his case, to draw the sword, certain conditions must be met. He must discover the form, truth, and reason of the Mononoke before he can slay it. To get these things, he basically has to uncover all of the hidden secrets of the Ooku. Alright, look, Mukutani would have stayed alive if I had my way. Here's how. The beginning of this issue, leading up to her death, was Kami. Whether we like it or not, Kami influenced the outcome by how clumsy she is. First, she spoke to Lady Fuki when Mukutani told her to keep her mouth shut, and then from that point, Mukutani already had a vendetta against her, and it became even more obvious to Lady Aashima when Mukutani was scolding Kami for missing out on her morning duty. And with all that info, there was absolutely no reason to leave Kami's punishment to Mukutani, especially when Assa had already offered to help discipline her. If I were in Aoshima's shoes, I would immediately stop Mukutani from from coming into any contact with Kame. And with that, the situation Mononoke would not have happened. And what's more, her death could have been averted if the security guard knew how to do his dang job. Instead of giving information to a total stranger, he should have been the one getting information out of the guy. I mean, seriously, a random dude shows up at your gate, refuses to leave, and you just assume he's there to sell medicine? If I were in his position, I would super stylishly ask some relevant questions like, gee, why are you here really? Or even subtle ones like, what do you do when you're not peddling medicine? Anything to get him talking. Heck, take him out to eat when my shift is over. Do anything to get info out of him, because getting info out of him helps me get him into the Oku faster. And if he gets him there faster, he can get to Mukutani before the Mononoke dies. And this doesn't happen though, does it? No. So now here we are stuck with a dead body. Lady Utama doesn't wait to hear more information from Medicine Man, and she asks the gate man to give the Medicine Man a pass to the Oku. And then she proves why she's the big bad wolf of the story. She tells everyone in the room to not speak about the incident to anybody. And if anybody should ask about Mukutani, they're to say she's alive and well, nothing wrong here. And the Medicine Man doesn't seem to care about any of it, and he asks all of them in the room to share their form, reason, and truth with him. Lady Aashima disposes of Mukutani's corpse by throwing it into the same water they fetched to drink from, and we wonder why it was so bitter. She gets so traumatized by what she's done that she vomits into the river. The next day, Kame doesn't show up at the morning water ritual. Assa drinks her water and goes to beg Lady Utama to not dismiss Kame. The Medicine Man with his pass begins to send out his scale things all over the Oku. Assa eventually gets Lady Utama to allow her to deal with Kame. The Medicine Man joins them for the morning ritual to watch. But when Saburo Maru and his companions see him, they're not happy. Lady Utama comes up and states that Lady Mukutani had to go home. For the first time, the men see the blankless emotion of the spiral faces of the women. Don reacts to the departure of Mukutani, and it just rubs them in a very bad way. Consequently, Assa, who just arrived 3 days before, is appointed as the new head housemaid in place of Mukutani. While the appointment is going on, a piece of paper drops in front of Saburo Maru, and through that we figure out that the lady who left for home 2 months ago never made it home. The duo stops the Medicine Man on his way and asks why is he in the Oku, but he tells them to ask Lady Utama before showing them his gate pass. While talking to them, his scales begin to point in a certain direction. Kitagawa shows up in Asa's room again, and she asks Assa what is she willing to get rid of in order to move forward. She tells her that some things must not be discarded, because if they're discarded, you will dry up from the inside. And that's when Asa's room door swings open and the Medicine Man is standing right there. At the same time as it opens, Kitagawa disappears. Assa goes to check on Kame, who is ignorant of Mukutani's death. Kame's hiding and says she doesn't want to work with Mukutani, but Assa says she doesn't have to because she can work with her instead. Kame gets to work on writing, but quickly gets bored and decides to lay down. Are you kidding me? She's basically a cat. A human cat. Not long after she opens her eyes and abandons the work altogether, she decides to go walking through the corridors. But what she doesn't realize is that the eyes on the wall drawings are following her. She follows the sound of the women laughing into a room until she sees a door with the sun on it. She raises her leg to enter the water leading up to the door, but before she gets in, she feels a tug on her shirt. Lady Aashima pulls her back out of the room with so much force, she should have toward her kimono, but she doesn't. She warns her to never approach the night chamber again. Meanwhile, where the Medicine Man and the other 2 guests are, the scales begin tilting, and the guys are stunned and they want to know if he's a magician, and he tells them that Karakasa is here. Aashima takes Kame to her room for some discipline, while Assa arrives at the point where she left Kame, only to find out that while Kame has neat handwriting, she quit her job again. Aashima asks Kame, does she want to give up her job in the Oku? But Kame says no. She claims that she knew she couldn't make it in the Oku as soon as she saw Assa in the Oku from the day they met. As Kame speaks, water spills from out of nowhere and begins to fight gravity and go up the walls instead of going down. Kame claims that since the route of being a maid didn't work, she was hoping she would be able to catch the king's attention and, skip maidship before becoming a concubine, but Aashima isn't having it. Then she has a full mental breakdown and rushes at Kame with her scissors. The water has gone to the roof, but they haven't noticed it. Aashima grabs Kame by her hair, pins her down on the ground, and starts cutting off her hair while asking if Assa put her up to the task. Kame runs away and Aashima starts to give chase. The Medicine Man senses the disturbance in the anime force and rushes out with Saburo Maru and his companion chasing him. Aashima suddenly starts apologizing for throwing someone overboard, and the room begins to change color. And even when Kame tries to open the door and run out, it doesn't open. But then it does, and Lady Aashima is pulled out by a sudden force. Kame notices the change in the color of the room, and dare I say it, she can feel death coming for her. Aashima falls from one door through another, and just like Mukutani that dried up, she keeps on falling, and her skin begins to dry up. Speaking of Mukutani, Kame hears her voice echoing through the contorted wall colors. She's still talking about teaching Kame a lesson, and Kame screams, and Assa hears it from the room where she is. Meanwhile, one of the maids reports to Lady Utama that the Medicine Man and the other 2 men are causing chaos, saying there is a Mononoke in the Oku. The Medicine Man arrives just just in time to see Kame being sucked into the ceiling. He springs into action, grabbing her by her kimono and yanks her out of the ceiling. He stops the men chasing after him from running into the room. He then shoves Kame back at the two of them before rushing further in. He arrives at the next room where they only find the hand of Lady Aashima sticking out of the ceiling. He points out that it's already too late for her, and rain suddenly begins to fall into the room, and he realizes that the rain is the fluid from Aoshima's body. He opens the door just a bit to tell Assa where to find Kame, then closes and seals the door with his papers. Hiromoto and Saburumaru try to get more information about what is happening from Lady Utama, but even with everything revealed, she remains adamant and tells them to mind their business. The medicine man asks for the name of the maidservant that left for home 2 months ago, and that's when Assa finally puts everything together. All at once, they say Kitagawa. As soon as they say the name, his sword clenches its teeth. The medicine man tells them that Kitagawa is the truth of the situation. All that's left is the form and the reason, but they don't have time because he shouts, "The Mononoke is coming." At the same time, all the papers he used to seal the door get covered by weird colored water, and then it covers the entire wall. And then it forming a face with 3 triangles and starts moving around the wall. As soon as Utama comes within range of the room, the Mononoke directs its attack at her. The medicine man notices just in time to use his papers just like the hidden leaf sealing jutsu to seal off the attack stick. As soon as he wraps the stick in paper, the Mononoke withdraws until it disappears from the room. He warns them the worst is yet to come because the Mononoke has not obtained its final form. If it does, it would be unstoppable. Despite everything that just happened, her being attacked directly by the Mononoke, she declares sternly that the birth ceremony must go on. Okay, like we're all thinking it, allow me to say it. Aoshima's death and this entire ordeal is completely unnecessary. It did not have to happen. We've already dealt with the death of Mugatani, so you think these guys would have learned from their mistakes, but no, they don't. I already knew stuff was going down from the moment Utama said, "The show must go on." If that's not foreshadowing, I don't know what is. I would do the exact opposite of what Lady Utama did. It's pretty basic. The medicine dude just popped out of nowhere, saved a girl's life, and while he's doing it, he's the only one that seems to know what the F is going on. Now look, he's kind enough to offer his services without a fee, and the best you give him is a gate pass? No, he needs 3 things to work: form, reason, and truth. We heard it from him. I'd best start talking and answering all the questions he's asking. Lives are on the line. It is no longer just the problem of the Ooku. Anyone could be next, including me. Also, Mugatani was killed by a vengeful spirit. Up until her death, it was safe to assume there was only one vengeful spirit in the building. But guess who didn't want to die and still had unfinished business with Kame? Yeah, Mugatani. It's safe to assume that even after her death, there would be no resting in peace till Kame is also 6 feet under. And here's the kicker. You know this, and you decide that instead of honoring her memory by letting the maids know what's up, the best thing you can do is cover up the death and throw her body in the well because the show must go on? That, my friends, is a recipe for disaster. It is also something you wouldn't see me do. So how would I beat Aoshima's death? I would disclose everything going on, especially the part about Mugatani's death, as soon as it happens. I'd rather deal with 1 vengeful ghost than 2, thank you very much. In their room, Assa informs Kame that she spoke to the ghost of Kitagawa. When Kame learns this, she doesn't freak out like you'd expect. Instead, she says, "That's great." When Kame asks her what Kitagawa told her, Assa refuses to tell her, but tells her that she has something else to tell her. Assa confronts Saburumaru with the new consensus from the Ooku maids. They claim that after the ceremony, they will announce that Lady Aashima has passed away, but the ceremony must go on. Saburumaru is shocked to hear Assa speak like this. When he confronts her about her duty, she tells him that his job and the real reason why he came to the Ooku was to find evidence to bring down Lady Utama and nothing else. Assa has become another Aashima. She says nothing will go wrong at the ceremony because she will see to it herself, no matter what it takes. Sound familiar? She goes to the morning water ritual, but Kame throws her water away, and then Kame goes to discuss the secrets Assa shared with her with the medicine man. And this is why I don't share secrets. Assa understands but explains to the medicine man that she cannot help him figure out the reason he is searching for, because while she spoke to Kitagawa, she doesn't know what happened to Kitagawa. Assa goes to speak with Lady Utama, and Utama explains to her that she determines how useful a person is by the amount of responsibility they can bear. Assa figures out from her statement that Lady Kitagawa could not live up to Utayama's expectations, and she warns Utama that she could be the next victim of the Mononoke's attack, but that attack can be stopped if Utama cancels the ceremony, and Assa begs her and bows her head to the ground. Next, Utama calls a gathering of all the maids in the Ooku, explaining everything that is happening to them, but stubborn as she is, she insists that the ceremony will go on regardless. Assa explains the plan to them and asks for their support. However, the women don't listen. Well, not until Kame raises her hand in support and gives Assa the courage to make another bold call for their support. And when she does a second time, Utama is shocked and pissed off when all the women bow in her support. The security guard arrives at the Ooku with the rice balls for the ceremony. In the upper room, Assa and Utama talk. Utama says that she is not planning to participate in the ceremony, so that when the Mononoke comes, it will only attack her. But Assa Assa has something to say about that. She finally achieved the higher perspective that Utama spoke about. She says she's unaffected by a lot of things, but her emotions were kept in check by Lady Kame. However, she has sent Kame away from the Oku through a letter because of her failure to meet up with her duties. As she talks with Lady Utama, the medicine man notices his scales have started moving again. He chases after them in the direction they're pointing, while Assa goes on her duty. We then see Saburo Maru reading a letter and gets frantic. He runs to the well and grabs the fetcher and uses it as an anchor to lower himself down. Meanwhile, Assa notices something is wrong, but when she steps out to look, the door seems to shut her out while the Mononoke finally has private time it's been wanting with Lady Utama. It begins to rain in the Oku, but just as abruptly as it starts, it changes into some kind of weird colored water that filled the room when the Mononoke arrived to take Lady Aashima. The difference this time is that it's a lot bigger and covers the whole of the Oku. The medicine man arrives in the room where Assa and Utama are just in time and starts using his secret sealing papers to ward off the walls where the Mononoke is trying to seep in. And the warding spell holds the Mononoke in place, but the medicine man warns them that they are almost out of time. He asks Utama for the reason, the final thing he needs to draw his sword. That the Mononoke starts an intense game of tug-of-war, except this time it's not pulling. It's pushing the space between them apart as it tries to get to Utama. While trying to hold it, the medicine man starts bleeding. He asks Utama again why the Mononoke is after her, and she says she doesn't know. The ceiling gives way and the Mononoke overshadows the warding paper and sucks all three of them into the ground before erupting like a volcano. Outside, Kame, who was getting ready to leave, planned and starts running back into the Oku. Above the Oku, a giant eye appears in the sky, and standing on top of the roof is none other than the ghost of Kitagawa herself. Kitagawa says she has nothing left and she is all dried out. The medicine man sees the form of Kitagawa and warns them that the Mononoke is finally manifesting in this world. And then an umbrella-like substance comes out of the eye in the sky and begins moving around the Oku. As it draws closer to Utama and the medicine man, it stretches out different rods like hands, and Utama knows it is coming for her, and it pushes Assa away to safety. Meanwhile, the medicine man dodges the rods. Kame, who is probably trying to do something helpful, sees this, turns around and runs away screaming like a little girl. And then we finally get to hear Kitagawa's side of the story and why her ghost is so vengeful. She says that when she was asked to throw away her most prized possessions, she didn't hesitate. She believed if she casted it away, she would become a different person. She says that she had a Kame of her own in her own time. When she rose the ranks due to the favor of Utama, this other girl, her Kame, was not so lucky. Eventually, she had to ask her to leave so that she could focus on her pressing tasks. But as the person left, she realized what had changed inside. Now, while all of this is going on, our boy Saburo Maru, that took a dive into the well, made an extraordinary discovery. At the shore of the river where the well is, there are hundreds of dead bodies. Bodies belonging to women who at one time or another worked and served in the Ooku. The entire flower garden at the riverbed is filled with dead bodies. Kitagawa explains that she turned inside to find out what had changed, and that's when she realized that there was nothing inside anchoring her anymore. She had dried up, there's nothing there. She lost her position in the Oku and eventually couldn't even leave her room. She then realizes that she had thrown something important into the well, something she held dearly, and she rushed to the well to pick it up. Assa sees Kame trying to jump into the well and goes to stop her, and as she holds on, she switches sides with Kame, showing that Kame really is her anchor in the Oku, and Kame pulls her out of the well, causing her to cry out in pain because she nearly lost her anchor. Oh, how sweet and philosophical. At that same time, we see Saburo Maru scream in pain from the weight of his discovery. Utama remembers Assa telling her that she doesn't think Kitagawa holds a grudge against anyone, but as the scene changes, we see Utama all dried up with many maids stretching out their hands to dry her even further, and Assa is scared by the sight and looks away. In other news, the medicine man reveals that the reason has finally been revealed, and so with form, truth, and reason, he then says a chant and his body changes from that of a clown in white makeup to a fair young man, and the Mononoke seems to recognize him as a threat because it rushes towards him, but it's not fast enough. He takes his sword out and cuts down the Mononoke and banishes it by laying it to rest, and then he lands on his feet like a badass and in a split second switches back to the weird looking white clown guy. On the floor beneath him, many prized possessions of different maidens are lying about, including Kame's precious comb. Meanwhile, in the open space of the Oku, the ceremony goes on. A lot of people don't know what exactly has happened in the hidden parts of the Oku, since the information is on a strict need-to-know basis. Assa picks up the figurine belonging to Kitagawa and promises to attend the ceremony with it, and then she heads to the ceremony, and having no superior, serves as the official scribe for the ceremony. She takes the giant brush and screams, "Ready," before scribbling down something on the canvas. Kame finally takes her leave. She puts on her grandmother's beloved comb that makes her glow as everyone passes by, and the medicine man is now back at the gate, and then he says he can sense the form of a Mononoke, but it is still very faint. Assa returns the figurine to Kitagawa's closet, but as she puts it in, she sees the doll beginning to smile at her. My, what a happy ending. Jeez, you see what I mean? This is a weird anime. But
What do you guys think about the video? Let us know what you like about it and what you didn't like about it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. And as always, don't forget to check out our How to Beat playlist.